Hey, the internet! It's Penguin and Termite here with the very first flagship episode of
80-Bit Podsmash.
That's right. We're here to talk about where gaming goes to grab a beer.
Alright, I can't wait to get started.
Yeah. How's it going today? How are you?
I got a Nintendo NES Classic.
Oh, tell your story, but make it quick.
Alright, so it's May 2nd, 2017, and Nintendo announced about 2 weeks ago that they've discontinued the NES Classic, which is a dagger, searing, hot dagger into the hearts of all of Nintendo fans around the world. And I was especially bitter about this. So, it was a Sunday evening. We were in the middle of running our errands, sometime around 5 or 6 o'clock, getting ready for dinner, and I received a little notification on one of my news feeds on my phone that Best Buy was going to get a shipment in as their last shipment. So I immediately called my local Best Buy. I'm like, hey guys, I hear you guys are getting NES Classics. And I'm sure they were like, oh, this nerd, whatever. But they were like, yes, we are. And I was like, what? Am I going to have to camp out? Like, are people camping out now? What's the hype like? Oh, we've been receiving phone calls all day, sir. We've been open since 11. And no one has camped out yet. I'm like, crap. All right, thanks. Bye. And I hang up. And then I talk to my wife. And I'm like, okay, we need to go camp out at Best Buy at like 1 a.m.
I imagine she was less than thrilled about this
you have no
plan
idea.
that you have.
So to give you a very quick picture of a day in which this would interrupt, my wife works, I work, my mom watches my son, and I have to be at work before 9, and she needs to be at work at 8:30. Well, Best Buy opens for alright, so they told me they were going to hand out tickets at 8 in the morning, 2 hours before they open. So in order for me to get a ticket and camp out, I would train wreck this entire symphony of our morning that is getting my son up, fed, clothed, myself showered, my wife showered, and both of us ready for work with lunches in hand, ready to go for the day. So I opted to not do it. My wife told me, you are a grown man. You have no reason to be standing outside, interrupting our life just for some toys. You can deal without it. You already have a Nintendo in your basement, which is where we're recording right now, actually. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, yeah, a console that you already own.
A legit Nintendo, not the NES Classic, with most of the games. So I decided not to do anything about it. I'll just go to bed and just cast it out. So the next morning I wake up and we go through our orchestra, our symphony, getting our life together. It's craziness. I leave the house about 7:40 and I head down to Best Buy. I'm like, I'm doing it. It's on the way to my mom's house. I'm gonna head over there and just feel it out, just see how it's gonna go down. So I show up. There's a small line there, and I get in line and I'm not too hopeful. I counted loosely. I was about 12th in line. I was like, well, maybe they got more than 12. I hope Nintendo listened to their fans. Maybe they'll get more than 3. So I only had to wait in line for 15 minutes. The first person in line was there since 3 a.m. He was there at 3 a.m. Apparently traveling from Syracuse. I don't know what was going on with him. But I was there in line
He's dedicated.
for 15 minutes. And they came out with tickets, and they handed them all out, and I was number 13 out of 16. They had 16 consoles. So I was extremely excited. So they said to come back at 10 o'clock, so I had 2 hours to burn. I went to my mom's, dropped off my son, expressed all of my excitement there, and I came back at 10 o'clock in the morning to pick up my NES Classic.
Woo!
Yeah.
So now he's got one. I'm infinitely jealous. I have been wanting an NES Classic since they were announced, and I falsely assumed that, wow, this is a brilliant move on Nintendo's. Clearly they're going to have this console in stock in ad infinitum, because that would be a smart business decision, but, smart business decisions are maybe a little bit beyond Nintendo sometimes, so...
That's a whole topic for another discussion.
Whole topic for another day, so...
I am definitely in the same boat.
I think I have officially missed out on my chance of getting an NES Classic. That's cool. I'll just play this, guys. So, anyways, yes, as we have said, this is the 80-Bit Podsmash. It is our show where we will be talking about video games and stuff, and video gaming within the context of broader conversations. Danny, why don't you explain to them what the 80-Bit Podsmash means?
Yeah. So, 80-Bit Podsmash comes from Dan being raised in the 64-bit era. I guess you are 3 years younger than me? I'm 30. You are
27.
So you are 3 years behind me.
3 years, you're junior.
That was just enough time to get me involved in growing up with the Super Nintendo, and Dan involved with the 64-bit era, i.e. Nintendo 64. So we threw 16 and 64 together, and we got 80-bit.
We can do simple math.
Yes,
Congratulations to us.
Yay!
Yay!
And we like the idea of talking about culture and art and politics and how video games has introduced itself into our culture. And so we are where gaming goes to grab a beer and talk about these things.
Yeah, we are smashing them together with video games. We are also big Smash Bros. Fans.
Oh,
so
yeah, there's that too.
Podsmash is a title that works for us greatly.
Yes.
But we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, just to introduce ourselves. As we said, we are Penguin and the Termite. I'll talk about who we are.
Sure. Yeah.
So, who am I? My name is Dan Grathwall. I go by Penguin. I'll explain what that means a little bit. As Danny said, I'm a 27-year-old married guy. Love my wife. We've been married for about 3 years now. It'll be 3 years by the time this is released, yes.
Yep.
We live in Virginia, which is where both Termite and I live. And I went to JMU. I was a theatrical performance major, which means that I wanted to be an actor until I grew up and, real life kicked in. So now I'm working in tech support to support my family. But I am super appreciative of my job, pays the bills. I am looking to do something more creative with my life full time, which is why I am writing a novel and doing a podcast. So I'm writing I would describe it as supernatural urban fantasy. It's somewhere Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Darksiders meets all the other video game influences I have. It'll be heavy on some reference humor, and it's fun. I'm in the middle of revising it. Don't get too excited. I've been revising it for like 4 years now. Writing it for 4 years.
Right?
It's completed. I have a first draft. I'm honing it to make a sellable draft, I hope, or an entertaining draft. So that's kind of the creative pursuits that I'm doing. I'm also starting a podcast. To explain what my gamertag Penguin is, it comes from, in high school, I created a superhero for myself named Penguin Man, who had a really awesome costume. It was black and white day. My school's colors were black and white. So we dressed up, I was like, I'm going to wear my penguin hat, which is a gift that my sisters got me previously. It's just a hat that's shaped like a penguin, as you might be able to imagine. So I was going to wear the penguin hat. I decided to go a step further, try to color coordinate myself.
Was there a football game or any other school spirit event around this?
There was. It was the homecoming game.
Okay.
So it was actually the day before the homecoming game. So I dressed up.
So you didn't just show up in a penguin hat randomly. This was kind of precedented black and white school
Right,
colors.
yes. Everyone was supposed to be wearing black and white, so I wore the penguin hat. But I was also going to say, I'm going to color coordinate myself as a penguin, because that would also keep the black and white theme.
That's hilarious.
I put a white shirt on over a black long sleeve shirt for that color. I wore black pants. But I was like, what am I going to do for my back? And then, lightning, it dawned on me, I'll wear a cape. And once you introduce a cape into the equation, all the other pieces fall into place. I was a superhero, Penguin Man. The legend lived on. I can tell plenty of other stories about how Penguin Man literally became a legend in the lives of my school and people around me. Penguin Man has had many adventures since then, and I adopted him as my gamer tag, and in this podcast I will be referring to myself as Penguin. So, that's the story. Danny, who are you, Termite?
I am Danny Bowen. I'm 30 years old. My name, Termite, comes from when I was an infant to probably a toddler, realistically. I would be very, very destructive in a house. I would get into everything. I would climb things. I'd pull stuff down. It was dangerous. I was very, very, very dangerous in a house. And my grandfather caught on to this trend of mine and decided he would call me Termite, because I could bring down a house just like termites can.
Nice.
And so ever since then, my dad and grandfather, they decided to call me Termite, and I've used it as an email address, a gamer tag, various things in my life.
It's his Wi-Fi password.
It's my Wi-Fi name.
Oh, it's his Wi-Fi network name.
You know that thing that's broadcasted publicly? It's not secure at all. That. I am a married man. I'm a full-time employed man. I went to school at University of Mary Washington here in Fredericksburg for computer science. Graduated in 2011. I've been working for a government contractor since, doing computer software-y, coding, fun things. I have a kid. He's almost going to be 2. His name is Sam, and he is hilarious and awesome.
He's great.
He's ridiculously cute. I have other hobbies as well. I'm into running. I'm very, very, very into running. I try to run every single day, if not 3 times a week. I've ran 4 marathons, countless half marathons, and I aspire to be a candidate for Boston. I want to qualify for the Boston Marathon, which is ridiculously hard for my age group. I have to finish with 7-minute miles for 26.2 miles straight, and that's ridiculously hard.
Just listening to it is wearing me out already.
I also drum on the side. I picked up drumming because of video games. Rock Band actually got me into drumming, and I translated that into real-life drumming when a friend of mine decided to sign me up for the church rotation. And I will play a real kit in front of people. And I was thrown into the fire, and I later took some lessons, and I refined my skills and got better. And so I am now a drummer and a runner, and I like video games. And oddly enough, I'm a NASCAR fan. I like motorsports and speed, and I find all of that engineering fascinating. So I follow that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Danny and I have shared tastes in not only video games, but also kind of pop culture, movies. We read a lot of the same books. We have a lot of the same favorite entertainment all around. So
Netflix shows, anime.
Yeah, we meet at his house to watch Game of Thrones every Sunday when that's on, and we did the same thing with Westworld, so we're huge TV show fans.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. But we also like video games. That's the whole point of our conversation here. So we're going to talk a little bit about what video games we like, and we're also going to throw in some video games that we hate. We're talking about broad genre categories that we will, I'm sure, mention specifics. I'll start. Video games that Mr. Penguin here likes are, I'm a huge fan of action and adventure RPGs, specifically...
You just merged like 3 genres together. Hold up.
No, okay. RPGs that feature action and or adventure.
All right. Okay. So you're
right?
focusing on the RPG aspect.
Yes, the RPG aspect is the focus there. I would say that most action and adventure games tend to also be RPGs, considering that RPG is kind of a loose category.
It is. They all
anyways.
are.
So
sure.
I'm mostly into ARPGs like Diablo. I love MMOs as well. Or specifically World of Warcraft. It is this game that is single most responsible for me missing out on almost an entire generation's worth of console gaming, which I then had to kind of go back and catch up on many of those titles. So, but that said, I love the Zelda franchise as well, and I would say that Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 is probably my all-time favorite game. Maybe even favorite piece of entertainment content that's ever been made. Might not go that far, but it's great. It is my favorite game for sure. I also like couch co-op multiplayer games. So Smash Bros, huge title for me. Anything that you can really play couch co-ops
that stretches across all genres.
It does,
couch
yes.
co-op racing.
Yeah, I mean, gaming is a very social thing for me. I am an extrovert. I get my energy from being around people. And being in the same presence of people. Doesn't really translate. Online gaming doesn't really translate for me. It doesn't really do it for me, other than the MMO experience. But sitting on the couch with someone playing a game. I'll even watch people play games. I just want to be, around people and around games. So those kind of games, Smash would be the biggest example of those. But if I really stretch my mind, I could think of some. Games that I hate, I don't care for most racing games. The exceptions to that would be Mario Kart and Pod Racer on the N64 was the first Nintendo 64 game I ever owned. So I played that for hours as a kid.
But no Gran Turismo, no Forza simulators.
I don't understand it.
Project Gotham, NASCAR.
Nope, just don't get it whatsoever. And I also don't care for sports games. I never really played any. And don't really care to. Not really into sports myself. But yeah, and I don't really love the realistic, quote-unquote, finger quotes, realistic first-person shooter genre. I never really cared for Call of Duty or Battlefield. The first-person shooter of my choice from that generation would be the Halo series. So give me lasers and flying tanks. That's what I want in my first-person shooters. Yeah, space, lasers, flying tanks, Borderlands, all that's fine. I don't really care for my M33 is a slight upgrade to my RPG-44 grenade launcher, and I died, respawn, camp. Not my thing, not my style. Danny, what kind of video games do you like and
So,
hate?
my favorite video game franchise of all time is Zelda. All consoles across all generations. I don't count the CDI ones. Almost every gamer I talk to, they mention the CDI. There's 2 titles that were licensed by Nintendo but not produced by them. I don't count those. But I own every Zelda for every console that has ever come out on the original consoles.
He also owns duplicates of some of them.
Twilight Princess for the Wii and the GameCube, and I am looking to get Breath of the Wild for the Wii U just so I can continue this trend of having every Zelda.
You also have Wind Waker, yes?
I have Wind Waker HD for Wii U, and I have Wind Waker for GameCube. So yes, there are duplicates in my collection. However, I don't own the Game Boy Advance ports of Zelda 1 or 2.
Gotcha, okay.
I don't know how I want to go back and get those or circle back around, and I don't know if it's worth it. But anyway, so Zelda's my favorite franchise of all time. I absolutely love Zelda. My first and probably favorite game of all time is Link to the Past. And that's actually not my first Zelda game, but it's my second Zelda game. The first Zelda game was Link's Awakening for Game Boy. That drew me into the whole series and the whole world of exploration. I didn't realize until way later, a couple years ago, that after playing the NES version of Zelda 1 all the way through, that Link's Awakening draws so much from the original Zelda that I immediately loved the original Zelda 20 years later. And I was like, yes, this game is so good. I love every aspect of Zelda. I loved, outside of that specific franchise, I love RPGs. That's probably my favorite. And I mean like either Western RPGs or Japanese RPGs. You can throw the action spices in there, and you can throw the massively multiplayer aspects in there. I've dabbled. More than dabbled. So I like Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger from Super Nintendo. It's kind of where I started. Fantastic games. Awesome exploration, awesome characters. Moving through the PlayStation 1 Golden Age, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy Tactics, Xenogears, Star Ocean. I've played a plethora of RPGs in the PS2. There's Dark Cloud, Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2.
Dark Cloud, I forgot about Dark Cloud.
It's so good.
Oh, it's so good.
And then Western RPGs started for me when I got an Xbox. I started playing Fable, and I was like, this is totally different.
Yeah.
But it was made in America.
Wait, hold on. Did you go dark or light your first time?
Always light. I can't go
Really?
dark. I can never go dark.
I feel like the first thing that everybody does in Fable is just murder a bunch of people and grow their devil horns.
I wanted to save all the kids, and I wanted to marry all the women.
All right. Well, there's our difference there.
Yeah,
That's where we're different.
and then that's funny, going into Knights of the Old Republic for Xbox 1 and 2. Always light side. Always healer. Always light side of the Force.
Gross.
Yep.
You know Jedi are manipulative bastards, right?
Yeah, I get that.
The Sith are at least honest about their desire to dominate.
Just like Slytherin. Yes. So moving into modern day, like The Witcher 3, Final Fantasy 15, Fallout 4, that's just the tip of the iceberg in my gaming history. I've played a lot of games, but RPGs I've always loved, I've adored over the years, and I have a massive collection of tons of them. So I also like action games, platformers. It started with Mario World, the Nintendo 64, there's Mario 64, all of the rareware platformers for PlayStation. There's Metal Gear Solid, Crash Bandicoot, PS2, Devil May Cry, Jak and Daxter. I mean, like, all those action games just influenced me, and they were awesome. So, and then I also like first-person shooters. Unlike Dan, Penguin over here, I fell in love with them on the N64 when I first played GoldenEye. Have you ever played Turok Dinosaur Hunter?
I love Turok Dinosaur Hunter.
Phenomenal.
I love it.
I still go back and play it. It's comfort food now.
Yeah.
It's comfort gaming. I was like, I just want to throw in something and play and shoot some dinosaurs and stuff.
No, I was a dinosaur fanatic when I was a kid, so
Okay.
of course Turok was like orgasmic for me as a kid.
Yep.
I
And
could
then I
experience
played
orgasms.
Halo 1 and 2, and then I got into PC gaming around 2002 when broadband came about as a medium. I played Half-Life, Counter-Strike. I moved through all of those Counter-Strike. I played so much Counter-Strike. I did enjoy Call of Duty with friends online a lot. That was not very supportive of couch co-op because you couldn't take your split screen online.
Right, yeah.
And so you had to either LAN party, which we did a lot of with friends, and it was just 3-4 TVs, multiple Xboxes. So much fun. So we enjoyed the fast-paced shooting each other in the face with realistic guns. You may have been trying to talk about an AK-47 and an M4 earlier when you were talking about RPGs and grenades and M33s. I don't know what you were saying, but yeah.
B100, C3PO, like.
So, as podcasters, moving on.
Wait, what do you hate?
Oh, what do I hate?
Games you hate?
Games I hate. I don't like sports games.
Right.
I'm with you on that one.
We share on that one.
The realistic football, wrestling, soccer. I played them. I've dabbled. People love them. Maybe because they love the TV version of them. I don't. I find them boring, and you can't control the character as much. It's too based on realistic stats, and I just like NFL Blitz was awesome. NBA Jam for Super Nintendo, hilarious. The basketball's on fire. You just destroy the hoop, slam it across the entire court. NFL Blitz, I would just make my entire team jump on each other like wrestlers and just stack up and just tackle the crap out of people, and it was hilarious. But realistic sports games, Madden, FIFA, etc., I just find boring. I also don't like MOBAs, multiplayer online battle arenas.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that one.
Yeah, I can't. No.
Sorry, MOBA fans out there. I can't do it.
You creep in, click, 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 click. Oh, run away, and then you creep back in, and you run away.
Well, I played Dota. I was a huge Warcraft 3 custom game fan.
Me too.
And I loved the original Dota. Defense of the Ancients was originally a Warcraft 3 custom map that people made using the map editor, which also was hella fun, just playing around with the map editor if you ever did that.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was pretty basic, but, I grew out of it by the time I kind of grew out of Warcraft 3. And then I've just randomly discovered that, Dota became an entire genre of games. And then I tried it because I was like, I love Dota. Nope. Just didn't translate for me. I just didn't do it. We'll be talking about, I fully expect we'll have an episode where we talk about what we think, appeals to people about different types of games. And MOBAs will be featured heavily in that discussion.
No, yeah, we're not going to isolate. We don't judge or hate.
Absolutely, yeah.
You guys love them. Same with sports games.
Yeah.
We're going to get someone from the military, maybe talk about some military shooters and his aspect of gaming and that real life aspect, and we're going to get some people who love sports games on here and talk to them and interview them about what they enjoy about sports games and why. And
we'll figure it out for sure.
Yep.
But our tastes definitely are not in line with that. All right, so moving on to things about ourselves, we were going to talk about some of our earliest and most favoritist video game memories from childhood. I'll let Termite here start off on this one. Tell us about what are your earliest and most favorite video game memories.
So my earliest memory was when I was 3 years old at my parents' house, and they had a giant 70s console TV. The sucker weighed like 2 tons, massive, but the screen was tiny. But it was just a massive piece of furniture back then. That's where it came from. It's how they were. And we had a Nintendo hooked up to it that my grandmother had gotten my parents for Christmas. And my mom and dad played. They kind of dabbled a little bit. But my brother and I were massive fans. And Super Mario Bros. 3 had come out. And we just hooked it up for the first time. And I don't remember originally playing Mario 1. But my brother's 3 years older than I am, and my mom definitely remembered Mario 1. So Mario 3 had the improved graphics and the bigger levels and the world map. All of those things I didn't know anything about at the time. I just run straight into a hole and die and be like, yay! Because I was only 3 years old. But I do remember we had like this turbo controller or wireless controller thing with like a flat D-pad that you drag your thumb across. It was really weird. It didn't work right. Didn't like it. So I remember small little details, but that was like my earliest gaming memory. And ever since then, I loved Nintendo. It wasn't until like we got a Super Nintendo that I really started to be old enough to understand moving through like late elementary school and middle school and stuff like that.
Awesome. So Penguin here. My earliest video and favorite video game memories were I think I had my start on PCs, which I maybe translated into why I've more or less been split halfway, half my life PC gamer, half my life console, and now I kind of ping pong back and forth based on what I actually want to play. But yeah, I remember as early as I can remember playing like Pinball and Minesweeper and like those basic. They were games on the PCs. I also remember a game called Commander Keen. It came out. It was it was 90s. It was just this basic game. You ran around. It was a platformer. It was for PC. I don't know much about its history. I'll have to research it and talk more about it at some point. Commander Keen, Dan's earliest video game. But I also I remember getting an NES. I remember playing Super Mario 1 was my first Mario game on the NES, and it was the first game that I remember playing. I remember very vividly playing it with some of my neighbors in the neighborhood, and we'd go through all the worlds and try to beat each other's times and all that. But probably my favorite early memory was, again, N64 was my console. And though I remember when I finally got an N64, what I remember even more was before I had an N64, we rented it from
Oh,
local equivalent to Blockbuster with the crazy security deposits.
Yeah, $150.
Yeah, and we rented. My parents would always let us rent an N64 during our Christmas vacation when we had the 2 weeks off from school. So me and my sisters, we rented N64. Granted, my sisters are not gamers. You have to understand that. So they don't. It's not their thing. But we would play Star Fox 64 around Christmas time during our vacation as a reward, and it was a blast. We had a good time. So that was kind of my more favorite early video game memories.
It's funny that one of your early favorite video game memories is the N64. Mm-hmm. We got one the Christmas they came out. We had also rented them in the past. I don't remember the exact month of the year, but I do believe it came out in 1996.
Okay.
We got one that Christmas. So months prior to leading up to the launch, we played the demo units in Sears. And around, we were so at Best Buy had this massive array of TVs that my brother and I would play, and we're so excited about it. We also rented it in advance. My parents would want to go out, and we were old enough that we could babysit ourselves, but we would get bored, so they would just rent us the N64, and they would go out and do their date night stuff, and we would just be enamored with Super Mario 64 and Wave Race 64 specifically. And my parents weren't very rich. We kind of grew up in a not poor, but a pretty we didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't expect to get one for Christmas. We were told in advance, hey, we're probably not going to have the money to get one, not to mention they were super hard to find. And then, sure enough, in a massive JCPenney's disguised box under our Christmas tree that morning, I ripped it open, and I realized it was disguised. It's not this big, and I'm pulling the peanuts out and throwing them all over the place and just digging through, and I found this N64. And, you think those freak-out videos of those kids excited? I was definitely that, and I regret not having a video camera around.
Nintendo 64! It's my favorite video.
Oh, man. And all we had was Mario 64. It was the only game we got that morning.
All you needed.
And we played that sucker. We got all 120 stars.
Wow.
Multiple times over. Yeah. And, oh, my gosh. So that was one of my favorite gaming memories of all time.
Yeah. So the last thing we're going to talk about with ourselves is why we think video games are a worthy discussion for a podcast. Why are we gonna waste our time talking about video games on a podcast? What do you think it's important to talk about, or why do you think it's worth talking about?
So there's the obvious: we have a love and passion for ourselves.
Absolutely,
we just want to talk about it. We talk about it with our peers. We do go get drinks and talk about video games. We talk about the latest releases. Hey, it happens. That's our passion. It's what we do. Outside of that, I've been gaming for 27 years. I'm 30. In the memory I shared with you guys, I was 3. I probably have played a video game every single day since, whether it's a mobile game or a Game Boy game or something. I've played or dabbled in a video game every single day. I wrote about video games in grade school. When I was in elementary school, the teacher would be like, "Oh, journal what you did over the weekend." And all I would talk about is we get to rent new games. This is the Super Nintendo era. We get to go down to the video store and rent 2 games every single weekend and write about them, talk about them, think about them. I got magazine subscriptions. I'd bring the gaming magazines to my school, and I'd sit and read them when I can. And I was enamored with games. That continues, and I really don't have an explanation as to why. I've loved them since the beginning, and I love them now, and it's never left. I've never grown out of it like people have. They have in the past accused me. Oh, you'll grow out of this. And, it's not happening.
Right.
I love it. Maybe my tastes have changed. Maybe I'm a little bit more picky, a little bit more limited with my time. But gaming has not gone anywhere in my life. So that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about games on this podcast. Another reason is I want to discuss the relevancy of gaming in our world. Let's discover for a minute. I did some research in advance, and I got some statistics.
Fancy pants.
I try. Gaming is still a very new generation medium. We had radios way back before TVs came out. TVs popped out in the 50s, and they were these super luxury items, and not everyone had them. And the next logical progression from TV was gaming. People decided they could program them and plug stuff into these computers that were taking up entire rooms, could be shrunk down into the size of a console you could just plug into your TV. And the earliest consoles came out in the 70s. It moved through the 80s. So gaming was introduced into our culture then. That's only 40 years ago. It's not that long. It was niche through the early aughts. That's the early 2000s. When I was in school, I was still a quote-unquote nerd for liking video games. When it came to the jocks and the popular things on TV, those were the things people would talk about. And me and some friends would talk about video games and get together and play them, but it was still very unpopular, especially my level of nerddom with it. And looking at any storefronts, like you go through the mall and you see a gaming t-shirt, that was unheard of.
Yeah.
Of course, now you see it everywhere. You go to Target, they have a whole section of games, t-shirts and stuff. You go into GameStop, they have coffee mugs and knickknacks, Christmas decorations, t-shirts, etc. So now, today, gaming is inundated with our culture.
I remember specifically, like, middle school, for me, because I was a little bit behind you, but for me, when I was in middle school, I would talk about video games and get ridiculed. And then there was an abrupt shift somewhere in high school when suddenly it was like, oh, everybody plays games now. It wasn't, I know a lot of people had that experience in college where they find there, but I started noticing it as early as high school where it was like, oh yeah, some of these jocks are talking about playing Halo. Like, did it become cool all of a sudden?
So I want to explore that. I want to look at how gaming is new and is still influencing our culture today. The average age of male gamers is 35, and the average age of female gamers is 44.
Interesting.
That's way older than I thought.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people think games and video gaming is for kids
yeah.
School age, college kids, they grow out of it. No, 35 and 44. That's middle age. That's older than me.
Yeah, that's early middle age.
And that's the average, which means there are people even older. And sure enough, 26% of gamers are older than 50.
Wow.
And I don't know the details of how old, but I imagine most gamers haven't even retired yet. And there are generations of people behind us that have retired. So there's a huge generational shift. I want to explore that. I want to get in there. I want to look at the differences between what culture was like, the things we consumed, and how we spent our time as a society before games, and now as I age into retirement. I'm halfway there. I mean, I'm not even close to retirement yet. But as I will, and I don't see video gaming going anywhere.
Right, and it's not going anywhere, and it'll be interesting to see how the industry will begin to cater towards this large group of, they're 35-year-olds now, but in 10, 15 years, they're going to be 50-year-olds. They're going to be soon 60-year-olds. Soon the gaming demographic will retire. How will video games cater to their taste? Because it's not going to go anywhere. It's only going to get more sophisticated and more evolved as it becomes, because TV didn't go anywhere. Old people watch TV now all the time, where it was this newfangled thing that only young people used to do. Now
old people still read the newspaper.
Yeah,
I mean, there are people who are still attached to TV every single day and
yeah.
their newspapers every day. I don't watch TV regularly. We have TV in our basement that just comes on when we want it. Like, it's not the background noise that the older generation has with the news on all day. So I want to get into discussing the impact of gaming to our general culture as it has been introduced. I look at video games as an in-between. There's two kind of aspects. There's passively reading a book, watching content on TV. You're just consuming it. And then there's the performing arts and the dance, where you're on stage, you're rehearsing, you're practicing, you're doing it, and people go watch you. There's the Broadway shows, and etc. Gaming kind of lies in the middle. We interact. We're not performing, but we're controlling what's on TV. We're not just sitting back.
Right.
So I want to talk about that, and I think it's awesome, and the implications of art and performances and all of the things out there in the world and our culture and how we are massively influenced by this influx of gaming. So I want to talk about that.
Sweet.
What do you want to talk about in our podcast, Dan?
Well, I think that video games are worth discussing. Mostly because you kind of, everyone says, do what you know, talk about what you know. When you're a content creator, you're supposed to talk about or write about or produce what you know. I know video games pretty damn well. So, because I love them. I'm passionate about them. We already went over those. I'm an entertainment junkie. I would say that I find value in entertainment, as frivolous as it may be sometimes, but I think that I'm very knowledgeable. I've been exposed to a lot of different types of entertainment. I've broadened, in the last few years, even the last 5 years, I've broadened my entertainment horizons, tried new things, tried out more podcasts, which I hadn't previously
I'm new to podcasts too, and they've been around since the iPod.
Right,
and that was like 2003, 2004, I think, when the first ones came out. I don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's a whole new medium that I'm getting to. I used to read a lot, but now, I've got a 40-minute commute to work, so I've been getting into audiobooks and just learning what it's like to consume novel, content, the content that is a novel through a whole different medium, having it narrated to me, that's almost completely new to me. And so, and just learning to appreciate different types, different genres. I've been listening to, I hadn't listened to Stephen King until recently. I started listening to the Dark Tower series. Granted, it's pretty nerdy, but now I'm trying out It, so I'm listening to It now. I was never really a huge horror fan, but I recently kind of broadened my category. So I love entertainment. I love finding that thing in a story that's compelling to me, that's interesting to me, that hooks me. Hugely into stories. I think stories are one of the driving forces of my life. That's why I'm a writer. That's why I went into the performing arts, because I love learning and exploring the idea of storytelling. I think video games are an excellent storytelling medium for the exact reasons that you were saying, because not only are you a passive observer of the story, but you're a partaker of the story. You're an agent. You're exercise agency through the story. And video games are starting to reflect that more and more as you begin to especially dip into the open world RPG genre. You can tell your own story. I think it's funny, we both had the same reaction to Breath of the Wild. We exited out of the cave and we looked over the horizon as the cutscene went over, and we immediately turned around and climbed up the nearest cliff wall. And that's like
through the cave we just emerged from.
Exactly.
We're gonna climb above it.
Oh, I can climb that? I'm gonna climb that. Like, that's totally how I would be if I were dropped in that world. I'd be like, I'm gonna climb the nearest cliff. So I just love the experience. It's not just entertaining to me. It's meaningful. And that's really the root of all entertainment. Entertainment is, a lot of people look down on entertainment, but it's really a mirror to a society. Entertainment reflects what the culture values. It reflects what the culture finds evocative and powerful in their own lives. Otherwise, it wouldn't be something we consume. It wouldn't be something we seek if it didn't, in some ways, define us. So I think that exploring an entertainment medium such as video games, you really get to peek into kind of the soul of a culture and also the soul of a person. What makes them excited, what makes them passionate. So I want to get more involved in this community by talking about those things that get people passionate about video games, that make it worth discussing, because it is worth discussing because people are worth discussing. And those things, those stories, and those experiences that make people light up when, I've experienced lighting up when playing a video game before. I've seen people light up when playing video games. That's part of the reason why I love couch co-op, sitting together in a room with someone, experiencing the same thing. It's powerful, it's meaningful, and I think it's valuable to talk about. And yeah, video games, again, they provide people with identities. There's a reason why so many people identify as gamers. The identity of gamer is something that's becoming, for better or for worse, becoming more prevalent, and something that people define themselves as. And so therefore I think it's important to explore that and explore, okay, well, what are the nuances of this identity that people are assuming for themselves? It's an identity that I would probably claim for myself to some regard. I'm a gamer. I enjoy games. They are a part of who I am, a part of what makes me me. So yeah, I think that's why it's important.
Would even say that gaming has gotten us to where we are in our lives.
Yeah,
even now.
For sure.
I pursued computer science because of my love for video games.
Mm-hmm.
It got me into computers, and then I love computers.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, I can make a career out of this. This is amazing. We're starting a podcast on the side because we love gaming and we love computers. But we are.
The novel I'm writing is heavy laden with video game imagery. It's heavy laden with video game references. I wouldn't have half of those things if it wasn't for the video games in my life, and to a lesser degree theater as well. My pursuit of the theatrical arts is because I love storytelling. I wouldn't have loved storytelling probably as much unless I had played video games and partaken in those. So again, it's just discussing this idea of, most people see video games as escapism, but I think there's something that's inspiring about video games. They have inspired my life. They inspire the lives of people that I know. They inspire the lives of thousands of people I've read online, millions of people. You pulled up the numbers you were showing me earlier. The numbers are staggering. More people are partaking of these things. People don't partake of things if they don't feel inspired by them, for the most part. So I want to just sort of discuss. I think it's important to discuss that idea of escapism versus inspiration. because I think that, video games can be inspirational. I know that even the words coming out of my mouth sound silly because I've got society's, preconceived notions about what video games are weighing down on me. So it says, oh, those words don't go together. But they do. Like, the reality is, I think the truth is that they do go together. Video games can be escapism, yes. Video games can be that entertainment trap. But they can also be inspiring. They can also make people want to create content. And that's what we're doing now, is we're creating content based on our inspiration. So that's why I think it's worth discussing.
So then why did we decide to start a podcast about all of this? We've established why we want to talk about video games, but why a podcast?
Right, yeah. And so that gets kind of that segues nicely into what our podcast is about. What we really want to talk about with this episode 0 is, what are we about? And what do we do?
What is 80-Bit Podsmash, the Penguin and the Termite, about?
Yeah, what are we about? And I would say that we're, you said it really well before, we're a voice. We can be a voice. We can stake our claim in this kind of journalism thing. I never really thought I would be involved in journalism. And part of what we do is admittedly entertainment as well. But, we can also be a chance to be a voice of our perspective and offer what we have to offer. We get to be a platform for ideas and discussion. We get to have conversations that normally you might not have. People might not have about video games. Typically when people talk about video games, they're talking about what games they play, what games they like. They're talking about games that are coming out. And we'll be doing that, of course. But you're not going to hear a lot of reviews from us. Part of that's practical. We don't have. What would you say it would take to accurately review a video game, Dan?
You got to be able to play the entire thing all the way through and back again, and that takes 40 to 150, 200 hours.
Depending on what you're playing, absolutely.
Per title.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I need a week off.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to take a week vacation and play a game just so I can review it for a job. I don't want that pressure.
No, we're full-timers here. We're full-time employees to our various companies. We don't have time for that. Not to mention we're husbands, parents. We just don't have the time to dip 140 to 100 hours into a single game just to review it. So we're not going to be doing a lot of that, and that's okay. What we offer is we're going to be, again, talking about broader topics. We're going to be talking about things that you might not think go with video games or that you might not have thought of. We're going to try to offer perspective and offer up new ideas, new ways to think about this medium, new ways to think about this thing that we all love.
And I'm hoping we can draw the perspective that's similar to most of the people out there in the world that aren't in the gaming journalism world, and that is the same perspective of an everyday person. Mm-hmm. Someone who doesn't have the same amount of time to play games, but loves to hear about them, loves to talk about them the same way that we do. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping we can connect with you guys in that regard.
As hopefully other full-time employees, like you said, that statistic of their an average of 35 years old, that means most of the people that we're hoping this podcast reaches, most of them are 35-year-old.
And I imagine the stereotype of the person living in their parents' basement that's just morbidly obese and unhealthy is a very, very small amount of gamers that have been projected upon us all. That's not true either.
No,
so
most
I would
of you are
hopefully
probably
think that most of these people are functioning normal members of society.
Right, full-time parents, full-time employees that are, members of society that enjoy this hobby and find it important. So we find it important too, and we want to talk about that from that perspective, from that worldview and viewpoint, for sure. We're casuals. We are not hardcore gamers. So we will be offering. We will have that point of view when we discuss things.
That's a whole topic.
That's a whole topic, but I figured it's worth mentioning right from the get-go.
The casual, it has a sting to it.
Right? It even feels wrong saying it, but it's the truth. I mean,
you look at our lives and how we space out and how much time we play,
and how much how we approach the content too. It's all right. I want to get as much as I can out of this because I only have an hour today. you know? So. It's definitely part of who we are, so it's going to be the viewpoint we have.
My kill-death ratio is not positive. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we have great respect for hardcore gamers and people who can put the time and effort in, especially the ones who can accomplish crazy feats like the guy who learned how to play Zelda blind and beat the game blindfolded.
Have you ever watched someone
respect.
play a first-person shooter that has like a 3-0 kill-death ratio? And they just like a professional Gears of War, Call of Duty player. It is almost a performing art. I understand why people do Let's Plays and streaming on Twitch and those things, because to watch that is amazing. There's some skill. Kudos to you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, and part of being a voice though is being able to kind of hold the industry accountable to our perspective, to what we want from them. You know.
Normally we only pay, our voices with our wallets and how we pay for things. I would like to have a voice that's not just in our wallets. Hey, there's this podcast that's getting started that's getting some attention. Hopefully, that's kind of where we want to go, is to grow and be able to seek an ear to listen to us from this side of the fence. Like, I don't have time to play everything. I like what you're doing, but maybe when you do your E3 stuff and your coverage for PSX or PAX and those various expos, you're not covering what I want to hear. You're not covering the casual gamer's ear. You're covering the hardcore gamer's ear. And so you're just a fire hose of information that I just need 15 minutes out of.
Yeah.
And I don't need the whole gambit of things because I don't have time to sit and listen to a 3-hour podcast about E3 and some announcements. So I hope we can be that kind of brevity in the news aspect for you, the average gamer.
Yeah, I mean, we have utmost respect for what others in the industry do. We fully respect other podcasts such as, you know, Easy Allies, and
Kind of Funny.
These
IGN.
guys who that's their full-time job, and that's awesome. We need people who are doing that kind of content.
I listen to them all the time when I'm driving out to work and back in my hour commute or so. Every time I drive out to where I work, that's not my normal office.
Yeah,
and I do consume that content. I find time to do it. I can't dedicate all of my time to it, so I miss a lot of things. And I look up to it. I aspire to that. I would love to go to E3. It's been a childhood dream of mine. It's awesome. So if I ever do get to the point where we're getting media passes to go to, not only how exciting would that be?
That's the dream, guys.
I hope that we can get to the point where we're your voice, we're your ears, we're your eyes. We're getting the content out of it that you want, not what our bosses are telling us to get.
Exactly.
I don't want to waste my time standing in line to play, I'm sorry, Snipper Clips. I played a demo of it. I didn't enjoy it, but apparently it was popular at the latest PAX in Boston. I'm not going to waste my time standing in line to play these games and get that experience just so I can write a report for my boss, because I have to. I'm going to go there with y'all in mind. You're going to tell me what you want to see.
Yeah.
And I'm hopefully going to be as equally as excited about the same things you are.
Yeah, you're our boss. You tell us what you want us to play. You tell us what that's what we need from you. Is we need feedback. We need your ideas. We need what do you want us to talk about? What do you want us to discuss? What do you want us to play? And from there, you know, that again, you're our boss, I think is the best way to say it.
Or we're their representatives.
Yes.
We're your representatives in these things.
And as anyone who is a representative should know, the people, power to the people, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here. But you know, most of all, bottom line, end of the day, we want to have fun. We want you to have fun when you listen to us. So we're gonna do some fun things. We're gonna have some giggles. I'm all about the giggles. That's what I wrote in my notes. All about the giggles. You know, again, this is something we want to be social. This is something that we want to be about community. The community, the gaming community, the online community, the podcast community, and our community, the community that we have between each other. We're gonna be doing some social things. We're gonna bring a lot of guests in. Hopefully someday we'll be able to bring some guests in of names that you recognize, but we're going to start with people in our communities, people who are our communities, part of our communities, and we're going to have some damn fun with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
I would like to add that I also have a vast history of gaming and knowledge, and I would like to use that in a productive way to educate, entertain, discuss, and learn about video games and their place in our lives. I would love to draw parallels from retro gaming to modern gaming, how the industry was in the 90s to how it is today. I have read Console Wars. I have read Power Up, and I'm sorry I don't know the authors off the top of my head, but I highly recommend those books. I'm looking at a stack of books. Now You're Playing with Power was the NES Classic kind of player's guide. Hyrule Historia, and a Nintendo 64 anthology. Like, I'm fascinated by where gaming has been. I'm fascinated by where gaming is going, and I'm hoping that I can use those reach into those knowledge experiences of mine and be able to have opinions and discuss things and glean topics from you guys and have discussions online and bring our audience into this show through stretch goals and things that we don't have completely planned out yet and what we're going to be doing in the future to integrate our audience into this show.
Yeah, and you all, again, you are all a part of it. We want to create content for you guys. I think that, as of what we've planned out now, the things that we have talked about, it would cover maybe 2 months, 3 months worth of episodes shows. If we were to do a weekly show. Yeah. So again, what we want from you all is we want you all to participate in the conversation and help provide us with things that we can talk about, and kind of encourage us to talk about things that you want to hear us talk about. So if you like us, if you want to be a part of this, then be a part of it. Help us out. Have a conversation with us, and maybe consider supporting us at some point in time. In the meantime, we're just going to create content. We're going to have our talks.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk our talks. We had when we first were dabbling with recording, we had this great conversation about Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh my gosh!
I think
we did have a great conversation.
We had a great conversation about that, so we'll have to formalize that up and have that, probably save that for another.
Ooh, and I just read a Game Informer that talked about a company called Ninja Theory is developing a video game called Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and they, in the same vein as us, are creating this game with no publisher. And the history of their games have all been involved publishers and listening to what their bosses have want. This is the people who made, there was a launch title for PS3. It was called Heavenly Sword. I don't remember if you know that.
Yeah.
If you remember that game or not. But it was produced by Sony as a launch title for PS3. And their creativity has kind of always been stifled by who's producing their games. And so I'm very eager to play this game. But also the idea of how it's being created, they decided to go rogue. And kind of like the indie movement, but they're a AAA publisher or developer. They're a AAA developer with no publisher, and they're making this game. Stuff like that.
That's the way it used to be, right? I mean, technically speaking, it wasn't like Blizzard Entertainment started off as their own publisher. They were just dudes making games,
right?
And that's
and
what
like BioWare got started with Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. That's exciting.
So those are little tidbits of things that we can talk about in our topics coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll be hearing a lot more. This is just getting started. So if you've listened to our episodes before and are referring back to this episode, we'll hope you've gleaned the information that you wanted to know about us.
Some background information about who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
And if you are continuing a fan, or if you're starting here, then just know that that's kind of a taste of what we want to try to do.
This is the worst podcast we'll produce.
Absolutely.
It's our first one.
It's going to get better from here.
So if you are coming from episode 5, 10, 15, and you're now coming to this one, I'm sorry for the quality. It will only get better, and our skills will only get better.
Our research will get better. We'll learn more. We'll have more knowledge to share with you.
But if you're just getting started, know that we're only going up from here.
Absolutely. So, thanks guys for listening. This has been Bit Podsmash with Penguin and the Termite.
Episode 0.